Hello, in today's video I'm going to be talking about verbs and verbals. This video is specifically for my Homer B students, but that doesn't mean other students can't watch it. I mean, it's publicly available on YouTube, so, there you go. So the first thing we need to talk about just briefly is verbs. Verbs. A verb is a word that expresses action or state of being, and a sentence has to have a verb, at least one. I mean, it could have more than one, but it has to have at least one. And I have two sample sentences up here on the screen, which you can see. The first one is King Solomon was the wisest of rulers. The second one, obviously, being King Solomon ordered the construction of the temple. One of the things that I'm going to ask you to do with our next set of lessons that are coming up is I'm going to ask you to identify the verbs in sentences by underlining them. And then I'm going to ask you to tell me whether or not the verb is an action verb or a state of being verb. And that's usually not too complicated. Action verbs tend to be pretty obvious because they're actions, right? It's something that you could actually see somebody or something doing. So I look at my first sentence here. King Solomon was the wisest of rulers. Was is a verb. Right? Was is a verb. So I'm going to underline it. And in my second sentence, King Solomon ordered the construction of the temple. Ordered is a verb. I'm going to underline it as well. Now, when King Solomon was the wisest of rulers, you couldn't actually see him was, right? You can't see somebody was, or you can't see somebody is. They're not action verbs. This is a state of being verb. Right? And what the sentence is saying is that King Solomon is just being the wisest of rulers. In that particular sentence, he's not doing anything. Okay? In this sentence, however, he's doing something. This is an action. Right? If you were there, you would see and hear King Solomon order the construction of the temple. It would be visible and audible, as actions often are. And that pretty much the distinction there. No need to belabor the point too much on that. Because what this video is mostly about isn't verbs, but verbals. And verbals are not, despite what the word may sound like, it doesn't mean it's being said out loud. It's not that kind of verbal. It's a different kind of verbal. All right. So first thing I need to do is I need to clear some space out here because I'm going to need some more room. So I'm going to make some things go away. So that when I cut and paste my next block of text on here, there will be room for it. My screen is only so big. So here comes my next block of text. Ta-da! So a verbal looks like a verb, but it functions as a noun, an adjective, or an adverb in a sentence. And there are three types of verbals. There's the gerund, which ends in ing, and it functions as a noun. There's the participle, which usually ends in ing or ed and functions as an adjective. And I say usually because irregular verbs, like irregular verbs do, like to break the rules, right? I'm not going to end in an ing, I'm irregular, right, or whatever. I guess it'd be more the ed than the ing, right? Like ran, it's not runned. Please don't ever say runned. Okay. And then an infinitive, the third type of verbal, which consists of the word to, which ordinarily would be a preposition, but in this case, it's to followed by a verb. That's an infinitive. And infinitives can function as nouns, adjectives, or adverbs, depending on how they're used. And, so we'll have to look at sentences to figure that out. So now it seems fair that we look at some examples. So I'm going to come over here to my side of my screen a little bit over here where I have things that I can cut and paste that you can't see. So I'm going to grab my three examples and I'm going to change the color. What was that? You wanted to use a green this time? Okay, we'll use green this time. And then I'll put the sentences up here for you to see. Ta-da! There they are. Aren't they lovely? I thought so too. Let me give myself a little more room here. A little more room to work. I'm going to space these out just a little bit more. There we go. Excellent. Okay. So I've got three sentences, three different types of verbals in these sentences. Okay, because what I'm going to be asking you to do is not just to identify the verbal by underlining it, but I also want you to tell me what type of verbal it is. So this is a little more complicated. This can get tricky. So let's look at these examples. So the first sentence, ruling the nation of Israel had many pitfalls. Okay, the verbal here is that one right there, ruling. That's a verbal. Okay, and specifically that verbal is a gerund, right? Ruling is being used as a noun, right? If I took out the nation of Israel, the sentence would still make sense. Ruling had many pitfalls, right? So that's kind of like the subject of the sentence in a sense, right? So you got your gerund there. That one I think is pretty easy. Gerunds aren't usually too difficult to spot, in my experience. Now I've got Samson grew angry at the laughing Philistines. Let's underline the verbal first. In this case, the verbal is laughing, laughing. And this is a participle. It's being used as an adjective. What kind of Philistines were these? They were laughing Philistines. It's doing the same thing an adjective does in a sentence. And then finally, for the last example here, we have David walked onto the battlefield to fight Goliath. That is an excuse me, that is an infinitive. It is the word to followed by a verb, and in this case, it's functioning as an adverb. It's telling us why David walked onto the battlefield. So, anyways, that's verbs and verbals in a nutshell. The worksheet that I'm going to give you will give you plenty of opportunities to practice these. So don't worry if this still seems a little confusing. You're going to get a chance to figure it out on your own. And then when we check the worksheet in class, we'll get a chance to talk about any of them that you might have gotten incorrect. Isn't that wonderful? I thought so too. Okay, well, that's it for this video, and I will see you in class. Have fun.